Evening, everyone. Welcome to the Select Board meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. This meeting, hearing of the Ayer Select Board, will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom and Channel 8. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom, meeting ID number 897-9080-0793, or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager, at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100, prior to the meeting. If I could ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do we have any amendments to the agenda tonight?
I don't have any. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Agenda is approved. All right, I have one announcement. So this Saturday, the 20th, the American Legion Post 139, you'll see them planting all the flags at the cemeteries, Woodlawn and St. Mary's. And on 27 May, the Memorial Day events will be held, hosted by American Legion Air Post 139. Services will start at 0745 at Woodlawn Cemetery, then go to at 0815 at St. Mary's, and the parade will start on Brook Street to Peroni Park at 0900 with the stop at Town Hall. If you're around, please attend. Okay. Anyone here for public input? Yes, Dennis.
Thanks.
Just
Dennis,
quick
oh,
for
there
the
you go.
public.
Dennis Curran, 51 Pleasant Street. I'm sorry. This is just a quick plea for volunteers for the Senior Center Meals on Wheels delivery program. Right now, we're delivering meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The time commitment would not be excessive, an hour and a half maybe during lunchtime. Seniors who participate would be eligible for the senior tax write-off program. Others who are working from home and want to get out of the house for an hour and a half during the middle of the day would also certainly be welcome. Right now, as I said, we're delivering meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but if we were to get enough volunteers, we could deliver them Monday through Friday, and the time commitment for each delivery would be less, and it would just be a lot simpler if we could deliver more frequently. It's simply less complex that way. So anybody out there who's interested in helping out at the Senior Center, please reach out to Katie Petrossi at the Senior Center. The contact information is available on the website and at the COA newsletter. So hope to look for some smiling faces coming down.
All right, thank you very much. All right, anyone else here for public input? Okay, all right. Okay then. All right, so now we get to do the bond anticipation note. Good evening.
Hi.
Good
Evening.
So on May 10th, the town of
Could
Ayer...
you speak up, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
For me and for the TV.
On May 10th, the town of Ayer received competitive bids for a $6,095,803 six-month ban. In the fall, I will plan to go to bond, which will include the critical bridge project that was just passed at annual town meeting. The winning bidder was Jeffries LLC, They issued us a premium of $23,407.89, bringing our net interest cost to 3.4909. We had a total of 5 bidders, which in this market is actually pretty impressive. So the next step is to have the select board, through you, Madam Chair, kindly approve the vote on the ban. And I did include in the memo a suggested motion. I also have here a copy of the vote that the select board clerk would sign after the vote is passed, assuming it is passed. And then I also have the signature documents for the ban itself. I have it color-coded. Anything in yellow, all 3 select board members are asked to sign. Anything in red is just the select board clerk. And do you have any questions?
Nope.
I do not.
No questions? Thank you.
I'll move that the select board vote to approve the sale of $6,095,803, 4.50% general obligation bond anticipation note dated May 25th, 2023, and payable to Jeffries LLC at par and accrued interest, if any, plus premium of $23,407.89. The enclosed vote will be signed by the clerk and incorporated into the meeting minutes as presented in this meeting.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
No discussion?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye.
Okay. So do you want me to hand you?
Yep.
Everything's in there?
Yep, great.
Thank you for your time. Have a
All
good
right, so
night.
the red is just him only.
The
That would be
red
me.
is the select board clerks, and then the yellow is all 3.
now.
There are some tabs on each side of it.
I was reading this and then you spoke. That's why I got thrown. So,
I did it on purpose.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Dan. Oh, there you are.
Hey,
Hi.
Dan.
Good evening.
Evening.
All right, so we got 3 things on the agenda, but before we get into that, Robert just passed me off some documents that the town received last week at the State House. So the town was recognized in the water industry for Outstanding Excellence Award, and that was a regional recognition from the DEP Central Region for the town of Ayer, DPW Water Division, getting our PFAS treatment online and fully operational in the town of Ayer. So a pretty big recognition, all Central Region. We were one of the few communities or water systems to receive that. So myself, Kimberly, Robert, and Carly were there. You know, that'll be nice to hang up at our office, and it's good recognition to have for the town.
Yes, very
And
good.
I just want to note, we also invited Mark Wetzel, who did, most of the legwork, but he unfortunately, he's in retirement, but he was actually working, so he couldn't come. So kudos to him as well for the recognition. So the 3 items. So the first item on the DPW agenda is the Easy Street easement agreement. And so what this involves is essentially it's the town taking over the stormwater basins on Easy Street. So typically with subdivisions, the town, when a subdivision comes in, then when we accept the road, we also accept all of the stormwater, so the pipes, catch basins, and also the stormwater basins and their maintenance. There's been a few times in the past where it's kind of got put onto an HOA, and Easy Street was one of those. And so from my point of view, from an operations and an kind of enforcement and making sure it's getting done, a smaller subdivision like Easy Street is a good candidate where the town can just take it over, make sure the work's getting done. It's not much on our plate. An HOA at like Pingree Hill, there's a lot of stormwater basins there. It makes a lot of sense that they're taking care of those, and we're just the steward making sure that that's being taken care of. So the easement agreement here would essentially transfer the stormwater easements and the maintenance of the basins to the town, and we would just continue with those. And we're lining up to do a few this year, so we inspect them twice a year, and we have a few to do, so we'll check out Easy Street too and keep that up to date. So I would recommend executing the easement agreement. And I think there may be somebody from the HOA trustees here. Yeah, Steve?
Yeah, Steve Mariani, 4 Easy Street. I am one of the trustees.
Yeah. So there's 2 trustees. Steve could make it tonight, and I believe Lindsay was unable to make it, but the document require obviously them to sign as well, and so we've worked with the HOA for this. Their HOA is basically set up for just for.
And you're good with it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when it was founded in 2012, the HOA was responsible for plowing the road, paying for the 2 street lamps, and the still water. When the town took the road, they started plowing, that was off our budget. They also took the street lamps. This is the last piece. So once I have this, I can contact the lawyer and dismantle the HOA. Because since we haven't been paying for anything, I haven't been collecting dues, it's just this last piece, I can make it official. So I have no issue.
Okay.
Very happy.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right, good. Okay. All right, so you need a motion?
Yeah, to
Approve it?
execute the easement agreement by the board.
Okay.
There aren't big questions.
Huh?
Like, all right.
I don't have any
No.
questions either. Thanks.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the select board execute the easement agreement with Easy Street Homeowner Trust as presented.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Chair says aye. This is my fault. I threw us off.
Yes. We'll go with that.
She's not here,
Alright.
but she needs to sign it.
So, yeah, then I'll notarize that after.
Yeah.
Okay, so your easement's approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you want to come up? The second item is about the Grove Pond Water Treatment Plant production evaluation. So Matt and Kimberly will join for a presentation.
Is that the slides you sent me?
Yes.
Get the big three.
Yeah. You wanna give it to the lead?
Hold on one sec. You want to drive it?
Yeah, if I
And
could.
then,
Yep,
like,
I'll look for the arrows over there.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So we're here tonight to talk about the production capacity issues that we've been having at Grove Pond and in the system in general. So I'm hoping that it sparks some discussion and we can figure out a way to move forward with this. So what I'm gonna go over tonight, yeah.
I'm just wondering if they can't see it. Sorry, hold on. See Pauline's hand up, that happened last time? Can we just check that they can see the share screen?
Yeah.
Pauline, are you able to see the shared screen or?
No, not at all. Thank you for allowing me to share that with you. But no, I can see it in the background, but not on my screen.
Okay,
Screen sharing working. Thank you.
yeah.
Oh,
Last time we just took it off and then rebooted it. Sorry, I don't know why that keeps happening.
there you go. All set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There you go.
All right, so we're going to go over a brief system supply history, what the concern is, what we had hired an engineering firm to do a study on the issue that we're having, and the recommended solution that they have. We'll go over the estimated costs and strategies to address the immediate concern. So, brief summary is that the Ayer water system was first authorized in 1887. There's over 3,000 service accounts currently. We have 2 water supplies, the Spectacle Pond, which draws water from the Merrimack River Basin, Grove Pond, which draws from the Nashua River Basin, and we also have emergency interconnections with neighboring towns. We have 3 with Devons at Barnum Road, West Main Street, and Fitchburg Road, and we have 1 interconnection with Littleton on Willow Road. Grove Pond was, of the 2 sites, Grove Pond was the original one, which started pumping from just straight wells in the 40s and 50s. It was the primary supply in up until 1975 when Spec Pond was built. So before then, it was just wells into the distribution system. It wasn't until 1998 that the treatment plant was built, and it had a 2.0 million gallons per day capacity. It was built with these green sand filters to remove iron, manganese, and arsenic. And so it was the primary supply until 1975, then it switched to Spec Pond, and then once this treatment plant was built, it was once again the primary producer for the town. In 2014, 2015, 3 additional wells were drilled to replace 1 and 2. In 2018, temporary PFAS treatment at well 8 began, and in 2020, permanent PFAS treatment with anion exchange became active. So this is Spectacle Pond. Well 1 was activated in 1975. The initial treatment plant was completed in 1984. Again, it was a 2 million gallon per day treatment facility for the removal of iron and manganese with green sand filter. It was the primary producer until 1998 when it switched over to Grove Pond. So you can see we kind of go back and forth with the 1 well. And then in 1986, well 2 was activated. When Grove Pond PFAS treatment began, Spec Pond made a difference and became the primary producer again. Wells 1 and 2 were replaced in 2021 and 2017 respectively, and it wasn't this past summer, July 2022, when PFAS treatment with granulated activated carbon was put online. So why are we here tonight? What's the concern? The concern is 2-pronged. One is that consumption has increased over the years, and that our ability to produce enough water has decreased since PFAS treatment began. So we have concerns about being able to meet summer demands and about being able to meet future demands. So what this chart is showing is from 2003 to 2022, how water consumption has increased over the years. This is an annual production for each year. So we're in the 400 million gallons to 615 million gallons.
So I was just gonna chime in real
Yeah.
quick. This isn't like an abnormal graph, community to community. This is probably, every town's obviously different, but you know, just like any other town that has development, water demand's gonna go up.
Right. This is a similar chart, but it's by month, so you can start to see the seasonal up and downs. The other thing I wanted to point out in this chart is it was relatively steady until about 2013, 2014, right here, where winter demand started increasing. And then in 2018, which is right around here, again, we have another bump in consumption, or year-round consumption. So it's not just like a summer thing and a winter thing, it's like an all-year-long thing where we're seeing increased consumption all year long.
That's not as typical to most other communities. Most communities have what you see on the far left, the up, down, even though it looks kind of odd. That's a normal operating water system, whereas, almost a constant, not that it's constant, but there's always fairly high demand. That's atypical. Obviously, we have large industries, commercial buildings, which plays a big part in that.
So the I'm sorry, did you have a
sorry, I'm
question?
signaling, there's a question, somebody has a question, I'm just telling him, hold on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So the other part of this is that production capacity has decreased. This chart shows the daily output from September 2015 to March 2003 just for Grove Pond. Okay? So it's just the one treatment facility where this is the area where Grove Pond was the major producer. And then we had the 2018 when temporary PFAS, and there was, this is all part of getting PFAS activated, these dips and increases. This is when permanent PFAS treatment began at Grove Pond, and you can see that our ability to produce the water needed has decreased. And then here is when Spec Pond PFAS began. And we're still just putting out as much as we can out of Grove Pond. But you see, we're not able to meet those spikes.
And those spikes could be, fire, it could be a water main break, it could be a variety of activities. So having one of those in a given year absolutely can happen. The fact that there isn't any of those spikes over the past couple of years tells a lot about what Kimberly's about to get to. Yeah.
This is a similar chart, but this is for Spec Pond only, where here, this is where Grove Pond was the primary producer and Spec Pond made up the difference. This is where temporary treatment at Grove Pond was happening. This is where permanent PFAS treatment at Grove Pond, and you can see how we weren't able to produce enough water out of Grove, so Spec Pond made up the difference. I'm hoping that that's kind of clear. And this is where Spec Pond PFAS treatment began, and again, this is kind of where it caps off. We're not able to meet those spikes. But again, this is just winter time. This started in July and August. So we're still waiting to see what's going to happen there. This chart really is illustrating how production between Grove and Spec has flipped over the years. Again, this is 2015 to 2023. The top line is total monthly production. The blue line is Grove Pond, and the orange line is Spec Pond. So this vertical line right here is when well 8 at Grove Pond went offline for temporary PFAS treatment. And so before then, before PFAS was an issue, Spec Pond made up the difference. Grove Pond was the primary producer. Once PFAS became known and an issue that we were dealing with, they kind of split half and half. And since this line shows when Grove Pond PFAS treatment began, and you can see that Grove Pond just really hasn't been able to produce as much as it used to, and Spec Pond was forced to make up the difference, and then this is where Spec Pond came online. And again, this is kind of wintertime production, so we're not exactly sure what it's going to look like in the summertime. This is another way of looking at it. So after PFAS treatment began, both facilities began to lose production capacity. It's due to excessive head loss in the plant, and I have another chart that illustrates that as well.
What do you mean by excessive head loss?
I'll go into
Okay.
that in another chart.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So for Grove Pond here, comparing April 2019, which is pre-permanent PFAS treatment, and April 2022, which is post-permanent PFAS treatment, you can see, so like average was 710 gallons per minute is what we could put out, and now average is 407 gallons per minute, which is a decrease of 43%. and maximum of what we could put out in that month went from over 1,000 to 500. So that's almost 50% decrease in capacity, in production capacity. This bottom one is Spec Pond, so it shows in a similar way. We don't have because it hasn't been on for so long, we don't have as much data, but the average percent decrease is 2% and the maximum decrease is 9%. The other thing I want to kind of point out here is that, especially for Spec Pond, it's maxing out. So before PFAS treatment, the treatment plant and the wells used to get breaks. They might run for 17 hours in a day, and now they're running 24 hours in a day. So that number, as far as percent capacity decrease, is hard to illustrate with these charts and at this time. Okay, so this is another way of looking at how production capacity has decreased. Currently, we're pumping at full capacity. So you can still, this one on the left is all of 2022. And you can see the spikes in the summertime, but you can also see how generally it's plateaued. We're making as much water as we can to meet demand at the time. This bracket right here is also here, and then plus some extra time. And so one of the things I want to point out here is, so you'll see a drop and a plateau, a drop and a plateau. So what that is showing is that during the week, that's the plateau, the Monday through Friday. And then the drop is on the weekends. It's usually on a Sunday, when the demand is much less. So again, it's a lot of it is, 70% of our production is for commercial use. So that's the Monday through Friday. So that's what this is trying to illustrate. Did you anything else to add to that? Okay. Okay, so this is where we get into the head loss part of it. So we hired an engineering firm, Woodward and Curran, to look at Grove Pond, because that's where we really needed to solve that problem. That 50% decrease was too much. So they did a study, and so head loss is where there's too much friction inside the treatment facility for the water to really push through efficiently. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's pushing the wells at the beginning here. This is the treatment train. So here are the wells. Here's the pressure of the wells. It goes through the green sand filters, and before PFAS, this is where it would have to meet the distribution system. But now we've got extra pressure loss through PFAS treatment. You can see, so this is the PFAS treatment right here, and you can see it just dips down and dips down and dips down. So we're fighting, the wells are fighting against the treatment plant itself to push the water through the treatment plant, but then it's also fighting against the distribution system at the very end of it. So it's got to try to push through all of that. And the wells are pumping as much as they can pump without causing damage to themselves and to the treatment facility itself.
So we simply can't just boost the pressure. If we boost the pressure, then the whole PFAS treatment facility doesn't work. We damage that, and we're out of compliance. So normally, we'll get to that. Pumps the solution.
Yeah. So the recommended solution is to create what's called a hydraulic break. So the way to do that is to install a clear well and finished water pumps. So here's a picture of what a clear well kind of looks like. It looks like a storage facility, but it is part of treatment, and it goes at the end of the treatment process. It creates a hydraulic brake, and I'll show that again in the next slide, what the brake actually looks like. So it's a break between the facility, the treatment facility, and the distribution itself. So the wells just have to fight against the treatment facility. They no longer have to fight against the distribution system. So you're kind of taking that fight out of it. So it allows the facility to operate at full capacity like it did before PFAS treatment was installed. And so then you've got a clear well, this smaller storage facility, and pumps, so the pumps would pump from the clear well into the distribution system.
And this, I was gonna say with clear wells, I see, most water plants have a clear well, even the older ones. We never really needed one, but there's more than just, I guess, pumping more water into the system. This would allow us to not only do that, but there's a lot of operating aspects that would make our job a lot easier.
How big would the clear well be?
That's
Or
ultimately.
am I jumping ahead on the slide? Sorry.
Not exactly.
No.
That's something ultimately our engineer, if we were to follow through with this, they would give us really a cost benefit analysis, how large it would need to be in order for us to provide future, obviously current water flows. We don't want it to be too big. We don't want it to be too small.
And I'd say too, there were other alternatives looked into as well, such as booster pumping, but like we already said, you can't pump anymore through that system. It doesn't help, but there was a few other alternatives looked into. This is the best recommended solution.
Right. So this chart shows that hydraulic brake. So I'll just go back to this one real quick, where the flow is at 470 gallons per minute, and this is at 1,000 gallons per minute. The wells start pumping at a much lower rate because they have to get through PFAS, but then this is where the clear well is. It creates that break, and then the pumps can pump up to distribution system pressure to overcome distribution pressure and fill the system. Estimated costs and funding opportunities. So with the study done with Woodard and Curran, they provided a quick preliminary cost estimate. And so right now we're looking at $2.745 million as a preliminary cost estimate. There are other options that we're looking into. The first being we're actually going to go back to the Army and say, thank you so much for what you've provided us, but with the system installed, we're still having some serious problems, and would you be willing to help fund the cost for that correction? Other opportunities is emergency SRF, state revolving fund, and we're also looking into various grant opportunities. The problem with grants is timelines. So kind of getting back to the immediate concerns is we need to try to get through this, we need to try to get through this summer. We are not, maybe I'll go back to one of the previous slides, but if you remember in the summertime, there are like these spikes in demand. And so right now we don't see an ability to be able to meet those demands on those random days when spikes happen. It's also, if anything were to really go wrong with the system, if there was a main break, a large fire, if a well were to go down, we would really be in a hard place.
I was just gonna say one thing too.
Yeah.
I wasn't talking about the tanks or water tanks, one at Washington Street, one at Pingree Hill. Those fill up during the day. Or I should say they fill up during night, and as water is used during the day, they drop. We need water in our tanks. We need, in the emergency of a fire, that's most of the water would be coming from our tanks to fight that fire. So when we're not producing the amount of water that we'd like to, our tanks aren't at the level that we'd like to. It just makes it that much more challenging for water main breaks or for a fire.
Yeah. So trying to have a proactive plan moving forward, we currently have the every other day water restriction conservation measures. So what we plan on doing is monitoring tank levels, production, and operations. Would like you to be aware that it may be on the table to impose further restrictions. I don't know that we need to do that just yet because we're doing fine. But I would like to suggest updating the select board and water commissioners frequently. And that frequency can be determined, whether it's weekly, every other week or something, just to try to keep you updated on where we're at over the past week or 2 weeks and where we see it going in the next week or 2 weeks. We also plan on working with our large customers because our large customers do use a lot of water, and if we're in a pinch, we can work with them to try to decrease their production for a day or two. It's not a long-term solution, but it's something that can get us through if they're willing to work with us. Another thing is working with Devens and Littleton for those emergency interconnections, depending on where they're at with their own water supply and whether they can feed us. Right now, I'm hearing that they are willing to help if the need were to arise, but they're also dealing with their own PFAS issues as well. Thank you very much. I'm hoping that this sparks some debate, some discussion. So please, if you have any questions or...
You guys have any questions?
I think we're looking for a way to try to move forward with this as quickly as possible so that the recommended solution can become a reality sooner rather than later.
Right.
Yeah, so my big question is, did the engineering study take into account future needs, or is it just with our current system and, with our future needs, thinking about some of the larger developments that we have coming down the pipeline with, on Fitchburg Road, West Main Street, where it's going to be a very dense housing construction area, that's going to create excessive demand on top of what we have now. So was that taken into account at all with the engineering study?
Not necessarily. I believe what was taken into account is just the ability to get back to where we were. And I feel confident that if we were to be able to get back to where we were, we would have the capacity to be able to serve these future needs.
So the approach is more getting to a certain gallons per million or millions per gallon flow rate that we had before, as opposed to saying this is what we're working with, this is what we have from a housing perspective.
Correct.
Thanks.
I'll take that real quick. Thanks.
Just, would it be worth it all, like a PSA for residents? I know you mentioned working with the larger people, but just explaining to people what's going on, asking people to curb some of their water issues.
Absolutely.
Beyond
Yep.
lawns and stuff.
Absolutely. I've got a few things in the works.
Okay.
I wanted to start with speaking with you. So that's,
I think that'd be a great first step.
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
I was actually going to recommend, send out a letter just saying, hey, everyone, we don't want to have to do restrictions, so we ask you to do this. So I know Dennis had his hand up earlier. Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of piggybacks on what Scott said. That is, I think there was one slide that indicated that there's been a 50% increase in water demand over the course of this slide from 400 to 600 or something like that.
That's right.
And what time frame was that?
2012, 2013 was
So
the
about
time
the
frame.
last 10, 12 years?
I think it was 20-year period.
A 20-year
2003 to
2023. Yep.
So just kind of piggybacking on what Scott said, to what extent do we know what the ultimate capacity, the maximum capacity will be, and how much notice will the town get that we are arriving at, maximum capacity? Because in terms of housing density, commercial developments, to what extent overall is the planning board, the master plan, aware of these long-term implications of either maximum demand on the wells or
Yeah.
excessive costs for whatever the water might be.
So we have a water master plan, and in that plan, we look out 5 and actually 10 years for future uses. And so, right now, we're looking out to 2035, and that's why we have the new well source approval for Spec Pond that we're looking into, another well at Spec to increase capacity out there, just for future needs. So that's one thing we're looking at. The other is, once we get Grove back to where it was, we should be able to hit the needs that were in our latest master plan in the near future. But in the far future, we will need more, like that other well at Spec Pond. I don't have all the data in front of me, but in general, that's what I recall. Yeah.
I was just going to piggyback on that. Ultimately, the MWRA, there's other towns nearby that are also dealing with the same problem that we have. They need more water. So there is potential for a pretty large region. We'd be a part of it, a regional pipeline that would basically add additional flow as needed. Would be really that could be, I should say, in the very long-term future.
Yeah, that'd be long term. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Madam Chair, through you, just a couple of clarifying questions for Kimberly or Dan or Matt. So the first one is on the Grove Pond, where you're seeing almost that 50% reduction. Is that plateauing at this point, or is it still getting worse? I know you mentioned the Spectacle Pond is relatively new, but if we did nothing, and I'm obviously not advocating that position, but is the filtration situation at Grove Pond deteriorating even more, or is it has it plateaued?
That's a good question. I feel like it has plateaued.
Okay.
Yeah, because what's going on there, we do have to do washes, correct? Because the vessels do get cloggings, an issue clogging or biofouling. So we do these washes, and then it sort of brings them back to life, back up to the, 550 or whatever they could do. So they slowly go down when we bring them back up, when the pressures in the vessels builds up. So we've been doing those consistently as we've worked through these issues with the vendor since the system went in.
And then the second question, for the clear well, the estimated 2.7 million, that would be for one clear well over at the Grove Pond facility, so not needing a second one at Spectacle Pond.
Correct.
So that would be, okay. And obviously timeline, I mean, it's considerable, work that still has to be done. On your professional sort of opinion, what do you see as a viable timeline? And I know there's not to put you on the spot for the chair,
no,
but,
that's fine.
But that's why I asked about the deterioration,
Sure.
as well.
Talking with Woodard and Curran, they were hopefully optimistic that it could be in by the end of next summer, I believe.
That would be
if we moved.
If we were to move as soon as possible.
that'd be everything going according to plan. There's a lot of variables at our control, so we definitely could not promise that. There's permitting, there's design, there's construction, but we would obviously work to accelerate that process.
Can I say a couple? So, one thing is, I think we should definitely. We've been working with the original designer and vendor, who also anticipated we'd have more flow out of these vessels. I think we got to revisit that and just see, was there something missed there? Why are we not getting what we should? Also, we did mention the Army. Without PFAS, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. We wouldn't have to have the PFAS treatment. Then we wouldn't need this clear well. So I think going back to them, like we've talked about, is a good idea. But I think just for the town's purpose, we really should just get the ball rolling to get this implemented so we're in a safe place with our water. One thing we could leverage that we know available now is the SRF funding, which is coming up in July, August is when that submittal is due. And if we were to get approved for a submittal, it would be, construction would happen next year. You'd be eligible for the SRF if you got on the intended use plan. So, you could start doing design ahead of time in anticipation that we could be ready to construct next year through an SRF, which is a low interest loan with principal forgiveness. But Also, as we look for grants or other opportunities, a lot of the money from the bill, bipartisan infrastructure law, has gotten funneled through the SRF for the water type projects.
Do you feel, so I know you just clarified that this one was for the one clear well, but do you anticipate that in the future you would need to do the other at Spexical? Like, do you think that it's going to have the same issues?
I think we'd be able to wait a very, very, very long while. Just both plants, basically they were designed if one plant is offline, the other plant can take on the full load. And
Right.
really the worry right now is if Spectacle Pond is offline, Grove Pond can't take on the full load.
Okay.
But if it's the inverse, Grove Pond is offline, Spectacle Pond, generally speaking, can take the full load, even with PFAS treatment.
Okay.
One last question through the chair, and I appreciate the presentation. I know we're on the cutting edge, which is kudos to all of you on PFAS treatment. Are they seeing this similar phenomenon in any other like, and I know no system is identical, but the technology that's being used at Grove Pond, and I know you mentioned too about revisiting that. Are there any other examples where this is happening, or is it unique to the system, or maybe we don't know?
I believe it was in Hudson.
Yeah, so that was one of the
happened
reasons we
before?
actually worked with Woodard and Kern, because they had experience with the anion exchange.
In Hudson.
Treating for PFAS, and in Hudson.
Okay.
But over there it was a lot different. They also had GAC, and they had multiple streams, but they had some involvement and experience with issues with PFAS and anion exchange. I'm sure I'm sure there's probably some others we could get through our consultants, yeah.
I think others are learning from us as
Yeah, we
well.
are.
Right, I mean, that's the
Frontiers,
burden
yeah.
when you're cutting edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question. So I know I've asked this question a couple times over the years. Has there any thought or discussion of adding another water tank somewhere in town to help build the capacity for the high demand area timeframes?
I'm not aware that there's talk about adding another.
We don't have one in our master planning, and the clear well would actually act to have some storage. They
Okay,
have 250
that was my thought, which is why I had asked
Right,
about
so it
the
does act
size.
at that too,
Okay.
as well. It does have storage too.
It's a really
On top of helping with the hydraulic brake, right?
It's a versatile solution.
Yeah.
It's inexpensive.
Right.
That's the troubling.
Great, thank you.
And if need be too, don't we still have some ARPA money? If we needed some extra funds?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we know what we have?
We,
1.6.
1.6 million.
All right, so I'm not giving it all to you, but you know. It's another source if needed, because it does fall into infrastructure, so. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, just personally, I think that, and I'll ask the board, it should be maybe a monthly update.
I agree.
And unless, of course, you need to,
Yeah, if you feel like it's
Yeah,
more
but
pressing,
definitely-
feel free.
a monthly, even if it's just like sending a note like everything's status quo or something,
Okay.
just so that it stays on people's minds and everything. Yes,
Promise, last one, Madam Chair.
you said that the last time.
What would be a realistic time, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, in terms of next steps to come back to the board with, say, a proposed timeline and what we'll call a funding pathway? In terms of next steps. So I think, as the chair mentioned, the updates, minimal monthly on the water capacity issues. But as far as moving, this down the pathway, what would be a potential reasonable time to come back for an in-depth sort of update on specifics as far as the timeline and funding approach?
Good question.
I'm thinking maybe either the first or second meeting next month to give us some time to work with our consultant. What it would look like for a scope of design and cost, kind of nail that down, just so we know that. But also start looking into these other, Army and other potential opportunities, I guess I could call them. And we could come with an update at that point and maybe a recommendation of what we think would be the best route. Yeah.
Thank you.
Much work cut out for you, that's for sure.
Yeah, like fix PFAS and solve one thing, we still gotta
Yeah.
make another.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So last item, just brief project updates, I'll be quick. West Main Street Bridge, so the local funding passed the ballot. So we are currently working on re-permitting, so just kind of scheduling that. Re-permitting, which should be done by the end of summer, and after that, we have to go to rebidding. So the permitting has a Concom notice of intent, there's a Chapter 90 Army Corps and an E&F, we gotta re-up, so those do take a while. So that's end of summer. Then after that, we would rebid, so sometime in probably mid or late fall, we open bids. And then from there, we do contract submittals and start construction. So probably in the winters, when they start doing small things like utility relocation, maybe vegetation clearing, but at the same time, they can order the prefabricated bridge, which will probably take a long lead time to get. And then next year is just gonna be a lot of construction. 2024 will be very busy.
So it really won't happen until next year?
Yeah, this year you won't really see a lot of activity, but we'll be able to award the project once we get that bid accepted in the fall. So having those funds available allows us to award. And at the same time, we're still looking for potential funding. I did resubmit for a small bridge grant, which we may be able to leverage another one of those for $500,000 and a few other
Did
opportunities
we use some
as well.
ARPA funds for the bridge also?
We did not end up.
What did we talk about?
applying. We did
Just
talk.
like-
We talked about it, but then
Oh,
we
we never
decided not to
approved it.
do it, yeah.
Oh, I thought we did.
So as we continue to move the project forward, concurrently still looking for sources other than the towns to eliminate the borrow or minimize the borrow. Main Street tip. So that's the design project to reconstruct the main street that goes through Mass DOT. The latest on that is there's what's called a design justification workbook. It's part of the 25% design submittal. So we submitted that, we received our comments back from Mass DOT, and that's very common. They usually reject it the first time, give you comments, and then you submit it again. And then it gets approved. So the comments weren't too big, and we're working that out with our engineer now to resubmit the workbook. And so once that gets resubmitted and passes, and then we go move forward with our 25% design, which is really like a 50% design in MassDOT in a real world. So for schedule for that, the next step, we resubmit the design justification workbook. So I think sometime in the summer this year, we'd have a public information and input meeting on the 25% design as we start developing it. And then there would be the submission of that 25% design sometime late summer or fall. And then in the winter would be what's called the 25% design public hearing that is required through the TIP process. Also of note, and thanks to the help of Alan, the Main Street, this project has the highest scoring TEC score, it's called, at the MPO. So it's the highest rated project in the MPO for all the TIP projects. So we've been lobbying we're lobbying right now to get the project programmed into a specific year. Right now it's not programmed, so they're actually reviewing that right now, the MPO. So thanks. Alan's here, right? Thanks for your support.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah. Central Ave, Groton Harvard Road intersection, real quick. We received a sketch plan from a traffic engineer. We're going back and forth on comments to modify that into a four-way intersection. Once that plan's finalized, DPW will put together a public informational plan to get the word out. And we'll work with town manager's office and the police as well in that. And what we'll likely have is a code red, we'll have email, social media, we'll have electronic signboards out for several weeks before we even make any change, indicating that the change is coming. So we'll put together a more specific plan and get that moving forward.
I'd say that should happen fairly soon.
Okay.
To
Yeah.
get the materials, we have to,
All
like
the-
you just said.
Yeah.
We have the plan together, we've discussed it.
And all the work can be done by DPW. We just need to get the materials. It's striping and signage, really.
All right.
So we gotta,
Quick
we gotta
question
start
about
getting that.
Central. Is the parking spots over here by the post office gonna be painted again? Cause like there was the handicap parking, remember it was the big
Yeah.
blue? Because handicap parking has now become in front of the post office again. Drives me crazy.
Yes, so actually,
Because people, the blue is missing. So people are actually pulling over here. I actually talked to somebody and they said, well, I had a handicap. And I'm like, but there's literally a sign, no parking.
yeah.
So, maybe we could paint it back again.
Right, yeah, and we just started doing our stenciling last night. They did some, parking out here. And that's part of it. We have to do some painting out on Central, and that is part of it, yep. So it's
Okay.
coming up in the next few weeks.
Okay. Because, the other problem is that people, they want to be like right on the end here of the post office. So that somebody coming around that corner and then somebody's here, boom. There's, I'm surprised it hasn't happened. I mean, people won't even pull up far enough so that somebody coming around that corner, and of course, again, there's no parking, and yet they park.
Right, so, yeah.
I know what the main.
It's been an ongoing problem for years.
Yeah, so I can talk
Yeah.
to the police chief about the enforcement I got, because we got the signs and the paint. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see if there's anything else we could,
Can I make one more request in front of the post office? If we actually get like a line down the middle,
Oh, that would be nice.
because can't tell you how many times I take the left on, and then when there's cars parked, there's traffic coming this way down the middle of the street.
on Columbia?
Yeah.
Columbia.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll look at that.
Please.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, yeah.
Yeah.
I happen to use that road a lot, so
Yeah,
that's
we'll
why,
do that.
that's why I always see them.
Line striping soon. Sandy Pond Road, Complete Street, real quick. Fuss and O'Neill, we hired the consulting engineer, and they did a conceptual design of a complete street from Snake Hill Road to Westford Road on Sandy Pond Road. It was a part of a town meeting article. So we'll be back to present those details in a June meeting. Just wanted to let you know that the project has moved forward, and we have some design to discuss with the board. Stormwater utility evaluation, myself and Matt, the town engineer, we're working with Ty and Bond. We just had a kickoff meeting on reevaluating the stormwater utility, which we received money for a few years back. We're aiming for the select board meeting on June 20th for kind of an initial information meeting after we regather our data. So with the consultant to kind of have a kind of an update there as to where we're heading with the evaluation. But go ahead.
I'd say it's kind of an interesting project because it's
Yeah.
kind of
What?
it's both a policy, it's both a engineering project, but there's also a lot of policy that will be a part of. It's
Yeah.
something that goes forward, and so it's not just DPW. It's Robert. It's you all. We're gonna make a few presentations over the course of the year.
And so, not to take up too much time, last one, Route 2A Willow Road intersection. Mass DOT is reconstructing that starting this year, and we just sent out a notice. There'll be a detour beginning on June 1st to June 16th, and that's up on the website. So there's gonna be varying detours with that road construction, and DPW is staying up to speed with notices and communication with the contractor. So we'll keep the town up to speed on that project. And that's it. A quick update on a few of the projects.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Right, Robert?
Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. You have the town warrants that were reviewed and approved since the board last met on May 2nd. As far as the administrative update, just a few quick points in no particular order. On June 6th, I'd be happy to be coming before the board for your consideration of ratification of an appointment for a new town planner. So more to come on June 6th with that.
Just to clarify, Mark retired.
Yes, Mark Archambault did retire, and we had started that process, and look forward to bringing that candidate before you on June 6th. Also, related to the master plan, which is going to, the next master plan, we're about at the halfway point. The planning board, and I know Alan has done a lot of work over the years with updates on the implementation plan to the board. Members of the planning board are currently conducting a midpoint review as well. They're going to be meeting with all of the departments in June, and I anticipate through the chair of the planning board, they'd like to come to the select board over the summer to discuss sort of the midpoint. Where are we on all of our goals, and where do we want to be when this current plan expires and we start the next process? Also, as I mentioned before, the buy board is going to be finishing up, it's just about there, its final sort of review of the financial policies. Those will go to all departments for their input, and then we'll have a brief presentation for this board and the FinCom as well for approval on that recent update. Most of the focus on the financial departments have been the year-end closeout of the fiscal year. As I mentioned before, starting probably the June 6th meeting, we'll have a few RFTs, reserve fund transfers, that will need to be considered by the select board as well as the FinCom. So we'll have an update, if not some of those, in your packet for June 6th. Also, the buy board will be meeting the beginning of June. I will also be reaching out to the finance committee as well, and I think this board to sort of do a review of the budget schedule and the budget process of this past year. What worked, what didn't work, are there areas for improvement? There's always areas for improvement, especially in our public outreach and so forth. So more discussions on that. Also, the regional dispatch agreement, the intermunicipal agreement between the town of Ayer and town of Shirley. The police chief and I will be talking with the board on that very shortly. And then lastly, we did see Senator Eldridge and Representative Senna in Boston last week, and they will be letting us know they are planning to come to one of the June meetings. We're just waiting whether it'll be June 6th or June 20th to give an update from Boston on what they're working at, and I'm sure to talk about Devon's and affordable housing and any other issues the board has. So unless, I don't know if there's any questions from the board on administrative matters. If not, you have a few action items for your consideration this evening. Okay. The first, under appointments. There are two recommendations for appointment to the Council on Aging Board of Directors. Both of these appointments that I'm recommending are also on recommendation of the COA. The candidates expressed their interest and did meet with the COA previously. So the first one is I recommend that the Select Board appoint Judge Robert Gardner to the Council on Aging for a term to expire on June 30th, 2024. The judge is currently away. He does give the board his apologies, otherwise he'd be here.
So these are only one-year appointments?
They're unexpired terms. So they're generally 3-year terms, but they're unexpired.
Okay.
So this one, both of them will expire on June 30th of 2024.
Okay.
I have no questions. No? Okay.
Questions?
Make a motion that the board appoint Judge Robert Gardner to the Council on Aging for a term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair says aye. Congratulations, Judge.
And the second one, on the recommendation of the Council on Aging, I recommend that the Select Board appoint Barry Markham to the Council on Aging for a term, unexpired term to expire on June 30th of 2024. And again, Ms. Markham also had planned to be here this evening and had a conflict.
But you had interviewed her, right?
Yep.
You're,
Okay. What was the first name? Sorry.
Mary Markham.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the appointment of Mary Markham to the Council on Aging for a term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye.
All right, thank you. And with that, there is a full COA board, all 5 members. So thank you.
Excellent.
Excellent.
The next item, per the board's last meeting, the recommended appointments to the Senior Center, Community Center Building Committee. As I proposed to the board and through your vote on April 4th, authorized the creation of the committee and the 9-member committee. We did advertise publicly for the resident seats. There are 3 resident seats on the 9-member committee. I'm recommending the following for your appointment. Mr. Dennis Curran as the COA representative, and as I noted, he was selected by the COA and is an Ayer resident. Dr. Katie Petrossi, the COA Senior Center Director. Mr. Kevin Melantic, Parks Commission representative that was selected by the Parks Commission and also an Ayer resident. Mr. Jeff Thomas, the Parks Director, who's also an Ayer resident. Mr. Dan Van Shalwick, the DPW Director. Mr. Ken Diskin, the Planning Board representative selected by the Planning Board and an Ayer resident. And then the 3 residents that did apply, and you have their letters of interest in your packet. And I know that we have all 3 of them here, 2 of them on the screen and 1 of them in the audience. Miss Ellen Fitzpatrick of Ayer, Miss Christine Logan of Ayer, and both Ellen and Christine are on the screen. And then Miss Marge Withy, who is a member of the COA and an Ayer resident, and did apply to be on the committee. So those would be the 9 members of the building committee that we are that are recommended for your appointment this evening.
Does anybody have any questions for them?
I do not.
No, actually, no questions.
Can't think of any questions, so. Thank you, everyone.
In the motion, do you need everybody's name specifically?
Or just, can
Or
we?
just as presented?
Okay.
Just as presented.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So I'll make a motion that the select board appoint the presented members to the Senior Center Community Center Building Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair says aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Curiosity question, is this just a 1-year term or is this an open-ended
We
appointment?
left it open-ended
Okay.
at this point,
Okay,
so.
just curiosity.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep. And I appreciate the support. So as mentioned, now that the appointments have made, the committee will organize, as mentioned, as the board is aware, so everyone's aware, it is a committee, public committee under the open meeting law, public records, so they will be meeting in posted meetings. There's also, we've created for them a web page for this committee, which will begin to be populated as a repository for various materials related to this process. So, and I anticipate that they will be, obviously organizing who their chair and so forth will be, and will be giving periodic updates as part of the charge to both the public and to the select board. And I know that they're planning to do some public outreach. So we thank everybody for their interest.
Excellent. Very exciting.
Thank you.
The next item briefly is an update from the previous May 2nd meeting for everyone's benefit on the opioid settlement allocation. As the board is aware, at the May 2nd meeting under public input, Mr. Dennis Curran, an Ayer resident, raised this issue of the disparity between the funding allotments for the opioid settlement and presented the board with an article from the Harvard Free Press. The board had asked me to further research the matter and advise back at this meeting. So as of today, I formally contacted the Opioid Settlement Division of the Attorney General's Office. So as the board is aware, the town, as well as other municipalities, entered into a class action lawsuit regarding the opioid issue. The actual, what we're trying to get to the crux of it is the percentages. Those were developed by the Attorney General's office, specifically this division. I am still waiting to hear back, which frankly I'm not entirely surprised given the state agency, but I formally asked this division, and there's a contact that we had for that. I submitted also the article that was presented by Mr. Curran to them, asking them specifically the following: if they could explain the methodology used for these percentages and why, specifically as was mentioned in the article, because nobody can seem to answer this, is why, for example, is Ayer's funding settlement so much less than Harvard, yet the data that we all have seen in the article shows that the opioid impact to Ayer, for example, is higher than Harvard. Shirley is also aware of this since then because they're in a similar boat as Ayer is on that. So we are waiting to hear back from the settlement division on a formal response on that, followed up again today, still waiting. Additionally, I saw both of them, Senator Eldridge and Representative Senna, last week, as I mentioned, in Boston. I had sent them the article and the same concerns to them, so they are both aware. And when I saw them last Thursday, I said, if I don't hear by this Thursday, would you mind, as our representatives, giving a fair point of time to the Attorney General's office, weigh in so we can get the responses. So they are prepared to weigh in as well. I also checked with town council that was involved, obviously, with the legal aspects of the settlement agreement, but they don't have any information with respect to how the percentages were calculated. So I did want to, as said, give an update for this evening. I wish I had the substantive information for tonight. I don't. As soon as I do, I would propose through the chair, I'll transmit that to the board and also under my report at hopefully the June 6th meeting, have a public update with the actual information. So that's where we're at on the opioid settlement allocation. The last item through the chair, number 4, is a proposed policy for the disposition of Town of Ayer surplus tangible supplies. So as the board is probably aware, under Chapter 30B, which is the procurement statute, by virtue of being the town manager is the town's procurement officer, the disposition of surplus property should follow a process. And through the chair, I'd like to turn it over to the assistant town manager who worked with town council to develop this proposed policy. The genesis of this proposed policy, for example, is there is a shed that was acquired by the library during COVID to be used during COVID. The Library Board of Trustees has declared in an open meeting that the said shed is of no value to them and they want it to be disposed of. And that's where then we noticed in a case like this, there really should be a codified policy so everybody's on the same page because there's been multiple parties that have expressed interest. So with that, through the chair, Carly, did you want to just give a highlight of the components of the proposed policy?
Sure, thank you. And Madam Chair, through you, as Robert said, 30B is a state procurement law. Anything over $10,000 value, we have a very specific statute set process on going out. We give proper notice, there's an auction, etc. Anything under, though, they leave up to the town to come up with a process. We did not have one on the books, so town council and I worked on this. And basically, you know, we're going to put something written out with the specs of the shed, and we're certainly not looking to balance the budget with this item. We're looking to have it removed from the library at whoever wants the shed's cost. Chuck did an estimate, and from the crane company, you can't unassemble it because the age of it has to be taken out in one piece. So
The age of it, I mean, it's only like 2.5 years old.
no, it's more, isn't it?
Because it came
Oh,
out of
no.
COVID, so.
Yeah, maybe.
So I just.
I can't remember.
You know, you're saying the age of it, you know,
The
like.
way that it's
Yeah.
The way it's constructed.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, not an
Yeah.
easy module.
Yeah.
Yeah, to disconnect and then reassemble, it just, the integrity would be gone if you did that. So we're gonna put it out and we'll post it in a conspicuous place in or near town hall. We'll put it on the posting board, we'll put it on the website and social media. Just if, we'll give a deadline if you're interested. Here's the specs and you're responsible and you have to have like a an insured company come do it. You can't just bring your pickup truck and heave it on there. You definitely need a crane. So anyway, we're just asking for your approval of this policy so we can get moving on the disposition.
And this would, through the chair, as the board knows, this would also be applicable to other scenarios as we move forward.
All right. Let me just quickly ask, Pauline, did you have a question about this particular item or the previous item?
The previous, but Madam Chair, if I just may say, the police department routinely over the last 30 years has disposed of items through some sort of auction in the past. So before you spend a lot of time making the process, maybe you could talk to Chief Gill and he could find out how that was done. They would get bikes and personal materials and stuff they confiscate. So I'll just throw that out. But when you're finished on this, I'd like to go back to the opioid real quickly.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
So, just if I may, Chief Gill is here, and he uses an online auction, which we could certainly do, but we've had local interest first. So we wanted to put it out here, which we'll proceed with doing the policies approved.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
No questions?
Questions.
I'll make a motion that the select board approve the new policy for disposition of town of Ayer surplus tangible supplies as presented.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Okay. Anything else?
No, I know that there was a question.
Okay, so that's why I wanted to make sure before I went back
that
to.
concludes my report.
Okay, Pauline?
Thank you very much. Briefly on the opioid settlement issue, I was interested in Dennis's questions at the last meeting, so I did a little research. I could not access the Harvard Free Press story, but Mass.gov has a chart of the settlement proceeds for every single municipality in this Commonwealth. And Dennis is right, Ayer gets less, or the town is right, Ayer gets less than $38,000 over a period of 15 years. So we don't get $38,000 in one payment. And I don't know, Robert, I'm sorry to go into this if you already know. Have you seen the chart or distributed it to the selectmen?
Through the chair, Pauline, I've seen the chart. I can distribute that to the board. I think you might have found that on their website.
Mass.gov.
Yeah.
I went right up.
Oh, yeah. I have seen the chart. I will send that to the board. And you are correct. I mean, you do see the disparity right in the chart.
Absolutely. And Harvard is only actually getting over those 15 years, $350,000. Not that that is a good thing, but it just, you're right. It is not, it does make sense to us given our situation. So I'm glad you've seen the chart. I think the selectmen should look at the chart as well. I would love to hear from Senator Eldridge. I have not contacted him directly, but I plan to. I wanted to ask if you all had been aware of it yet. So I share that, and that's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
That's my report, unless there's any questions from the board. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, Scott.
All right. Thank you for some time this evening. I have just a few slides. So after our conversation at the last meeting regarding the local Devons committee, I just wanted to kind of put some thoughts down on slides just to kind of give a sense of what some of the information that this committee will have to be working through once it's actually up and running. And
Hold on, sorry.
that's okay. All right. So just for the purpose of these slides, I just called the Devons Analysis Committee for the town of Ayer, just to kind of get a sense that it's more on the local level. Next slide, please. So really, it's going to be the charge of this committee to work locally and review and analyze potential impact of potential decisions with the former Fort Devens. And there's various scenarios that need to be taken into account. Local communities retaking their original borders, the local communities retaking modified borders, Devon's remaining a standalone enterprise, mass development enterprise, or Devon's becoming its own town. And some of the impacts are financial, but there's also social and environmental impacts that will need to be discussed and weighed. Thank you. So one areas that we have to keep in mind is impact on services for Ayer residents. So how does a population impact department heads, or sorry, department needs? How does additional acreage or area that we would be taking on impact department needs? Are there unique land in Devon's that require special attention? We've talked about Superfund sites, et cetera, in the past. The airfield, I think, is a good example also. And then what opportunities does the land in Devon's provide? I think from conversations at this table, we've all talked about the opportunity for more open space as a community. There's also, as other people have brought up, housing, et cetera, and what impact would that have? The other thing that we would have to keep in mind, and the committee does have space for Devon's residents to be a part of the committee, is the impact on the residents and businesses in Devon. So neighborhoods are divided by the historical town borders. That impacts education, voting, utilities, et cetera. There's different tax rates across all the communities, included within Devon. So our tax rate is split. Harvard is not. Mass Development has a separate tax rate. Shirley's got a separate tax rate. How do we handle those? And then also, is Ayer equipped to support the business community? There's different types of businesses in Ayer. See what falls within our jurisdiction, to see if we need any special additional equipment or training for our services in order to be able to support that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So from a preliminary approach, looking at what the historical boundaries are, what lies within Ayer's historical boundaries as they are historically, inventory of open space, developed space, environmental concern, complex open items. This is kind of going back to, we've talked about, we need the map, which is, that overlay of the historical boundaries to see what is sitting within each town's historical jurisdiction. Working with the Ayer departments, committees, and boards, informational session to discuss potential impact, costs, and opportunities with each of these departments, and also an impact on Ayer's master plan. We put that together not too long ago. We're about halfway through our master plan right now. So how would that impact the master plan going forward? Work with the Devon's Jurisdiction Framework Committee to request and provide information. So it's work in tangent with the committee that you and Robert serve, as to both feed information up, but also request information to come back down and help this committee do its work. And then possible cross collaboration with other Devon's communities. For example, Harvard has a local committee. Shirley, I don't believe, has one yet, but they may look at creating one and working together with them to share information.
They are working on it, about creating one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all I have. So just to kind of get a little more information out there, anyone who's interested in serving on the local Devon's committee, please submit a letter of intent to the town manager's office, and we'll see what we can do for you.
And there was a nice application in the last packet, that name and why you want to be and yada yada yada. So I just wanted to just kind of remind for the public is so there are some people that think like we're just going to take it back. We want it back. We've discussed this and everything, and there are people that live on Devon's and they're on public record, because they even said it at the last Devon's Jurisdiction Framework Committee. They do not want to be a part of Ayer. Okay? So, and nothing can happen until all parties agree. So it all has to be a collaborative, event. Like you said, you're doing your work. It's getting passed to my committee. I'm bringing it forward. We're bringing it back. So, a lot of that coming up. So. Pauline?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question on Scott's presentation. I might have missed it, but I did not see that attached to the agenda packet. is that online somewhere, or is it possible to receive a copy?
We can send you a copy. Sorry, I finished it this morning, well, during work.
I think,
Sorry.
all right, that would be great, thank you.
So there's residents, I think Alan has a nice list of people that had attended the symposium that has expressed interest also of being on this committee. And then, of course, the planning board and the FinCom will be a part of it too. So, hopefully this will get up and running. So, yes, Robert.
So, Madam Chair, just a couple of procedural questions so we're on the same page and to move this forward. So the first is, obviously, what the board has approved to create as far as the composition of the committee, we're sticking with.
Right, that was approved in 2018. I don't think we've
we're gonna
made any changes to that.
All of the appointments, unless specified, such as the planning board representative, and there's a couple others, those resident appointments will be made by the board, right?
Yes.
And you had mentioned about submitting a letter of interest and so forth. Do we want to Selectman Livingston's point, use, Alan had sort of prepared like that it was like a letter of interest or that.
I think that we should.
Posted today.
What?
Cindy was posting that today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I
So-
think that would be very good.
So we're good with that,
Yeah.
okay. Does the board want a deadline? In other words, what I'm getting at, that we try to, I guess it's gonna be posted today or
Today or tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Alan had sent it over to Cindy to post, right?
We do have a deadline on the application for submission of expressions of interest for June the 16th, Friday, June 16th.
Okay,
That works.
so that would be hopefully, right, so then you meet on the 20th, okay. Okay. Thank you. So it's underway.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anything else? Did you just raise your hand?
No.
Oh.
scratch my head.
Okay. All right, next up, we have meeting minutes from April 4th, 2023 and May 2nd, 2023. I didn't see anything.
I didn't see anything either. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for April 4th and May 2nd, 2023 as presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Okay, so now it is the annual reorganization of the select board. Who would like to speak first?
I would suggest we just move this way.
But that's actually was going to be my suggestion. We just kind of moved this way, not necessarily, you don't have to take that, if you like that seat, you can, I'm thinking about changing it up.
Yeah.
I'd sit there.
Okay.
So,
But
do you want to be chair?
I would love to be chair.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
I'd love to be chair.
Love in the minutes.
Last year of my term, I'd like to go out in style.
All right, so that would make Scott chair, me vice chair,
Me clerk.
and you clerk.
Yes.
Okay. So
Need
moved?
a motion? So moved.
All those-
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the former chair says aye.
So easily
All right.
done.
And if
That's
there's
it.
nothing else,
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:28 p.m.
all right. Seconded? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Good night, everybody.
Good night.